Hello, I'm Doug Muzzio. This is City Talk and Eldridge and Company. I've got to admit it, he's a hero of mine. I've read just about everything, some of it twice. He's prominently quoted in my doctoral dissertation. He's one of the premier journalists of his time and a best-selling and award-winning novelist and memoirist. He was the first TV newsman who talked like I did. He's a Queens guy and a Catholic, and he's written a scathing critique of his church. He's Jimmy Breslin, and for the next hour on Eldridge and Company and City Talk, he's my guest along with my colleague, his lovely and savvy wife, Ronnie Eldridge. Good. Welcome, Mr. Breslin.
Good, thank you. Thank you.
This is...
Well, the other guests couldn't get through the police lines.
That's exactly... I was surprised they let you through the police lines.
I came down to pick her up, and I'm here for an hour. Okay?
She's subversive.
On the camera. Go. Come on.
The
Let's
church
talk
that
about
Christ
me.
forgot.
Yeah. Very good. I wrote it. It's good.
Excellent. It's a Jeremiah. It's a screed. Yeah. It's distempered. What is it? Tell me.
Very well written book about the flaws in the Catholic Church.
Talk to me.
And why you shouldn't be a part of them anymore. You should be a part of an American movement that follows the life of Christ, not the life of riches in Rome.
Okay, now wait a minute. I'm from St. Thomas the Apostle,
so
Archbishop Malloy, and Fordham. This is what the nuns would call a schismatic book. You're asking for the American church to break away from Rome.
It doesn't matter. They're doing it.
You're saying
they're
in
doing
fact
it
they're doing it?
Yeah, look at the collections. That tells you where it's going. The money being put into baskets or into funds or things like that in the Catholic Church around here is down dramatically, and it's go down and down. And if they don't get money from New York and Boston in the Vatican, they're closing up. They'll have fire sales.
Why?
They're based on American money.
So you're saying that the church is demonstrably in decline in the United States?
You can
Why?
count it. Because they're not getting the money.
Why aren't they getting the money?
Because people are on to them.
But they're also spending their own money in settling all these suits.
Okay, well, on to them about what? What's the charge here?
That they allowed a thing called a priesthood to run into talking about same-sex marriages, to one sex, virtually one gender. The priesthood is about 75% gay. So are the bishops and cardinals. And pedophiles got into them and gave the gays a bad name. The bishops and cardinals, for their end, moved them around into other parishes.
And you make the charge that among the bishops and archbishops in the New York metro area, Egan, pimps.
Yes.
Okay, explain.
They move priests around where there are choir boys and altar boys, susceptible young. Let them get in there.
So you charged Murphy of Rockville Center,
the worst,
Egan of New York, we have two worst, and Daly of Brooklyn, who's no longer there.
The worst.
Okay.
Now, wait a minute. I'm going to show you why the church is bad. There's no sense doing business with them.
Okay, go ahead.
You get rid of all three on charge because they help keep sexual molesting going on.
But they got away with it.
Yeah, so now what do you get? You get a guy comes down all of a sudden he announces one day, I'm your bishop. He's in Brooklyn. I never heard of him. They put him in there, Muzzio, his name is. He never sent me a postcard. Could I come? Would you support me? He never made a phone call. I want to be the bishop. Could I count on you to help me? No, never asked me. I don't know who he is. I never saw him. I don't know anything. First thing out of his mouth, he says that same-sex marriages consist of it. Soon, if we let it go on, we'll have families marrying their pets, their animals. I didn't ask for this guy, this dimwit. I mean, obviously he's an imbecile. I didn't ask for him. They put him there. But why don't he take a walk?
No, you're telling me that...
I'm on a show, going to a show in Boston, a radio show, with this book. And I hear it's one of those crazy, who was the guy? Moo Cow or something. He's very popular. And they were talking about my friend raped his dog. They told me. So I was going to say, originally, I would have gotten out of the camp and says, I don't feel good or something. I can't get into this. But I said, look what I'm just coming from. The bishop is talking about it. Why can't I with them on the show? And I went on.
Okay, so the basic charge that you level against the church hierarchy,
Dishonesty, essential dishonesty.
and in fact, you argue that they're involved in a criminal cover-up.
Yes, and worst thing of all, they're taking me for a sucker by lying to me. Don't do that.
But if you were going to translate it into political terms or other terms, you'd say it's an abuse of power. It was a cover-up, right? It's all the different things that have been the large political scandals.
But how did they beat the raps? How did they beat the indictments?
The same way they're trying now. They lasted 2,000 years with all the crimes they've committed in the history of that church, and some of it's been horrible. They went for 2,000 years, and now they're just looking to sit still, let it happen, let it go on, let them beat themselves against the wall, and we'll be here.
Yeah, but you blame this on Rome.
Yes.
Why is it a Rome problem and not a Catholic universal problem? Why is it Rome's problem?
Because they run the church and they run it lousy and they shouldn't have it, and we should not be a branch store of an Italian business.
Wait a minute, this sounds going back a couple of hundred years to Martin Luther when he said
and
that
he
the church was
continued.
corrupt.
They should have continued.
So this is Breslin as Luther.
No, he was, I mean, that's a pretty good figure. I'm just taking a position that they're wrong and I'm right.
And this is Bishop Breslin?
That's right.
Of this new church?
Yes. And
why should I follow the Church of Breslin?
Because I'm not a pedophile.
So
Yeah, but
your
it's the
indictment is simply the issue of pedophilia?
Well, the whole structure is nuts. Now, I mean, I just end all arguments. I don't have to work when I argue with anybody about anybody coming in from the Catholic side. I said, what do you do about women?
Go ahead.
And then they look at you. Well, women, we have women in the church. They sweep the floor. They answer the door. Oh, no, they're part of I say, why don't you have women, priests, and married people married? It's a great job for a husband and a wife, a parish. It'd be marvelous. Why don't you have it? Oh, well, they flounder like fish on the end of a line. There's no answers. I'm in the Vatican, in the North American College, which is a lovely place. And after it, they had a very important meeting in which they said that it's wrong to be a pedophile and prey on the young for priests. Well, when was it ever right? They suddenly decided. Now, the second thing was a women's group came up and they asked one member of the Curia who was there, where are they, while they're discussing sexual harassment and molesting of people, are they going to bring up the fact for women in the church? Sensible women aren't going to jump on altar boys, so, I mean, it's good. He said, oh, no, there can never be women. That's been decided a long time ago and was ruled infallible. So I don't know much, but I know that word. I know little bits about it. So I said to him, honey, the thing, the infallible, I acted like a stranger. I thought it had only been used 3 times. Once by the Pope Pius XII, the guy that...
Didn't know the Holocaust.
He liked the Germans. I know that. He had a problem with Germans. And he said he wanted the Assumption of the Blessed Virgin to be a Catholic feast day throughout the world, and he ruled it infallible that it happened. Well, it's pleasant conjecture. Nice if that's what he wanted. Let him have the belief. Don't ask me to share in it, but I understand the essential niceness to it. Go ahead, have it. I don't believe, but that's all right.
But there's no infallibility in your church.
Now, the other 2 times it's been used, that word, is when this Pope said, it is infallible when I say it's infallible. He said it. So that's the 3, you're out. That ends it. So this guy said, oh, no. I said 3 times. He said, no, it was ruled on the women. That was infallible. I said, you're wrong. said, I'm not wrong, that was rules. I said, well, then you're lying now. How's that?
What does infallible mean?
I don't know. That's
is
the
it?
other thing.
What does it mean?
According to the church,
Ex cathedra.
the Pope speaks ex cathedra from the chair on matters of faith and morals.
But he's
the
never
church
done
is to
it.
be infallible.
He's never done it.
The church decided that the Pope was infallible when he issued a papal bull in the 19th century. Now, wait a second. Let me ask you a question.
So every
No,
pope,
but wait, I'm just
no
going to
matter
say.
where
Go,
they
no,
come
go, let
from.
him
I
finish.
called the guy a liar, and he got upset. So I says, you're a freaking liar. You lie to these women. Who the hell are you? And with that, I left the hallowed halls of the North America, and I says, these people should be chased into the street. I saw them all over the Vatican
But
Square.
then, I mean, it's the whole church, I guess. That well,
It's
anyway,
Enron with the collar turned around.
Okay.
it's worse than in.
Wait a minute. You're Jewish.
I'm-
How do you live with the Catholics, and particularly this Catholic? I mean, looking at it from an outsider, and I'm one of them.
I'm
What?
very easy to live with. Absolutely.
Well, your religion has nothing to do with how difficult or easy you are to live with. I always
Why?
liked it when I'd go to church with him sometimes and sit there and watch. I mean, this is all sacrilegious, I guess, and watch him after he comes back from taking reunion. He's so peaceful, you know. Everybody walks. Is that the way you're supposed to do?
No,
you
yeah,
know?
well, I don't know if
Anyway,
he does.
He's
I
so
automatically
peaceful
did
and
it.
calm, and it was very nice. Jimmy has this deep faith. I mean, that's the essence of Jimmy, is his faith. It's not so much the Catholicism. I mean, he's always, as long as I've known him, he's always been a critic of the church structure and that kind of stuff. But he has this deep faith, and that's what makes him Jimmy. I mean, he goes out and he looks at people who suffer and poor people, and it's why he's always been the first to talk about, or not the first, but I mean his main thing, people of color, the problems they have. Now it's immigrant people, or he I'm gonna say he won the Pulitzer, and you'll laugh at me because
I don't want to hear that.
Pulitzer Prize, you know, Jimmy Breslin, Pulitzer Prize winner. It's a joke in our family. But anyway, for writing about AIDS before anybody really talked about that. That's Jimmy, and that comes from his faith. I mean, it's all intertwined.
Okay, now, like Aunt Harriet in your book,
Yes,
and
of
Mario Cuomo, another Queens Catholic guy, you make a distinction between the distinction Ronnie just made, between your faith in religion and the organized church.
Yes, of course. I'm right down the middle,
Why
I
do you
make it.
need a church at all?
I
Why
got
does
a church without walls.
He has his own church.
know-
Actually, you're right. I don't think you need a church.
No, I don't. Church without walls. Other people might need a place where they congregate and they have each other and they give warmth to each other. You'll have churches, of course you will. But you're not going to have these things they run.
See, I go a step further
Go.
than he does about the need for religion. I mean, I envy people who are
I
able
know.
to do that
Do
because
we
it makes
want to
life
quote
easier.
Ms. Ronnie Eldridge
No, well, I don't
on religion here? I
Well,
believe
I was
it's
just
on
talking about the structure,
page
right?
153. Ms. Eldridge says, religions were conceived to ensure an orderly society, pure fantasy. Your Catholic Church and philosophers brilliantly conceived the ultimate threat of hell. You don't buy, you have faith, you don't buy what she's arguing, do
She
you?
leaves out God.
Do you?
Well,
Yeah.
that's our basic thing. I've never been able to answer how we all started. I don't know.
Okay, let's move
Jimmy,
from...
it's-
I can't answer.
I don't leave out God. I question God when it's a world filled with so much misfortune, so many tragedies, so many terrible things happening. I don't understand why there's a God. I mean, how we can have this faith in God when people get killed and people suffer so much and such inequities. I mean, that's what bothers me. I don't know how you answer that.
I don't quit.
Let's talk. Let's just move a little bit from God and religion to more explicitly politics. Let's move around from the personal to the political.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got John Kerry, first Catholic major party nominee since John Kennedy, and the Bishop of St. Louis, for example, won't give him communion. You've got the governor of New Jersey, Jim McGreevey, where bishops in New Jersey won't give him communion. What do you see? How do you see religion playing, not only the Catholic religion, but evangelical fundamentalism playing in this
Now we're gonna
election?
start.
Go ahead.
Good.
Playing in this election, or generally what their role is in
Well,
politics?
generally their role in politics, but also
They shouldn't
specifically
be
in
in,
this
but
election.
I still cut it down. Don't give me these churches or these bishops. They're fakes and frauds. and I don't want them there.
So forget
I
about
think-
the institution.
Well, yeah, but on the other side, they say they're evangelical.
More traditional
Christians,
fundamentalist
yep. And
Protestants.
they say that 80% of them, 80% of those people go to church regularly. That's a lie. There ain't 80% of those people going. I'll prove it to you by arithmetic. They only have one service a day in most of those churches on a Sunday. The Catholics need from 7 in the morning till 12:30, and then again at 5:30 at night to get the people in.
And the night before.
And the night before, you're giving in the evangelicals, you're giving them one shot to get there. Forget about it. They ain't there. Don't tell me. Half of them aren't there. That is a great figure if they get half what they say.
But wait a minute.
But
Go ahead.
100% say they go to church, which means they're going to vote that way.
So what do you
right.
see here playing in terms of religion and politics? Is it beneficial? Is it harmful? Do we need religion? I mean, after all, let me sound like a professor. The founding fathers believed that there was a problem with religion. At the same time, religion is ennobling.
Yeah.
It is the cause of sectarian violence and oppression.
Yeah.
What about the general role of religion in political life? Does it have a role? Should it have a role?
Yeah, if it came a role in things, I think it should be, isn't it? Such as a movement when you have a war, which they're not there. The Pope says he's against the war in Iraq. I don't know. I'm not aware of any strong stand. The against execution. The Catholics are for executions.
Yeah,
All the
but then
bishops
let's
are
look
for
at
it.
Judaism. They're not against war.
No, not this one.
And
Not this one. Yeah.
So
It's bad.
it's very difficult.
It's a two
Go ahead.
edge. I mean, I don't know. You can't
don't-
keep it out.
Well, I wish we could, because I don't think it has any place in politics
Yeah,
at
you're
all.
right, but you can't, I'm trying to be sensible. You can't keep it out.
Yeah, and I don't know if I necessarily agree with you, Ronnie, that you keep it out because it provides part of the democratic dialogue.
I mean, I'm out of it as far as
Jarring to me every time a session was ended, watching the Democratic event or a speech was ended. God bless the United States.
Well,
God bless.
I don't like that because in that, who are you to say that God is the God
It's
for
gonna
this
bless the
country?
United States and not
There's
Iraq.
a lot of other countries. Like you go back to from whence you came on all these things. The fighter's in the ring. He's blessing himself before the bell. Says, what good is that going to do? And they say it's going to do him good if he could fight. That's all.
So
That's the only good it'll do. Now, but what about then the basketball players about having
It's
these
fine. Bless
meetings
yourself,
on the
but don't bless me at the same time. I mean, I
I-
think that's the part of the religion. If you believe in something and it's comforting to you and it helps you and it guides you, fine. You believe in them. That doesn't mean that what you believe has to be what I believe. And I think that becomes the problem when we get into questions like gay marriage or just gay this and about homosexuality in general or about choice, abortion. That's when some people with their own religious beliefs try to impose it on others.
Right.
And that's when it gets to be
Right.
onerous. It should not happen.
Here's some historical memory here. John F. Kennedy is the second Catholic to run for president of the United States and the first one to win.
Yeah.
Now, John Kerry is 44 years later. When Kennedy runs, the fear was that he would be beholden to the Vatican, that he would follow
famous
the
story.
Vatican's policy lines. He's got to go to West Virginia to try to convince the American public that's not the case. Now, Kerry's in the opposite
Right.
problem. Kerry's in the problem where he's getting criticized for
For
not
not
following his faith.
Right.
How far have we progressed? What does it tell us
I think
about
this
the
is-
state of American
No,
politics?
I think it's the same because when they won that election, Kennedy said to Lyndon Johnson, said, "Well, Lyndon, we could start building that tunnel to Rome." But they claim, and John says, "I don't care what you do as long as Brown and Root builds it." And then we're getting down to money counts first.
Brass tacks, patronage, and
Yes.
jobs. Does it matter that Kerry is a Catholic in this election? The Kennedy election is the first one that I really remember. The
Yeah.
Kennedy-Nixon
It
election in 60.
Kerry's religion does not matter, as far as I can feel.
I
None.
think his position on abortion matters
Yeah.
to a lot of people. To
Yeah, but
people
he
who are
doesn't
voting.
have
When we went up to where did we go?
Boston.
No, we went to Scranton,
Hampshire?
Pennsylvania,
Yeah.
the other day for the first Kerry, that big rally after Boston.
Right.
And you get to it, it's in the courthouse square, and it's a very charming looking city, small, low buildings, and Courthouse Square is filled with thousands of people, and there at the perimeter are all the right-to-lifers and the Christian fundamentalists, and they're picketing like mad. And they're picketing him not because he's a Catholic, but because he's for choice, which is against their own religious beliefs. So it is all inverted and crazy.
Right.
So I don't think the religion matters. Or it matters because he's not being religious with some people, and others it doesn't matter.
But the whole Catholic thing is essentially been over, and Catholics would be are fully incorporated in the process in a way that the Kennedy election was doubtful.
Well, I don't know how we are in the South. I still don't trust anything south of Newark. I think they got prejudices against almost everything, including the.
So you think that there is this religion gap, whether it's the nature of the belief or the frequency with which people attend services? There's a difference between the religious and the non-religious in terms of their politics?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know that answer.
What do you think, Ronnie?
It's all according to where you are. If they're in South Carolina, it doesn't matter whether you go to church or not.
You're just talking that the general culture is such
Lousy.
that, okay, it's lousy.
Well,
that's right. So he hates the
down
church.
South,
He hates
he's
the
not only a
South of
Catholic,
Newark.
but he's a Jew. His grandfather was Jewish, so he's
Kerry? Yeah.
Yeah. So
I know one thing that they've been stuck at all their lives, and I don't think they know it in the South. They're so stupid. They voted for huge defense appropriations, always. And you saw that O'Neill from Massachusetts was the guy running to make sure that the bill got through. Defense, and all his voters are against it. He said, what are you kidding? All the contracts come to Raytheon, come here, come in my district. We got the brains. They vote, and we get the money.
So Breslin's law is forget about all the sideshow, follow the money, the patronage, the jobs, and everything else.
Well, the money would tell them, sure. Why not? Why wouldn't you follow? What are you supposed to
I quite
follow?
understand what you're saying. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Follow the basics. That's all. I
Follow
mean,
the
don't
money.
give me they got a lot of peripheral issues I don't understand. If they're going to get hung up on, what do you call it? What do you call that thing? Same-sex marriages?
Right.
That's crazy. I wouldn't even talk about it.
Those are the issues that the Bush campaign is basing most of its campaign
Well,
on.
let them die with those
morals,
issues.
morality, morals, gay marriage, and abortion.
Well, what I think what he's doing is
So-
he's trying to solidify his base. He is attempting to appeal to his core constituents, and he's talking to them in a language that they understand, which is the language of religion.
So then religion is very important.
I
in
would
this
think it's
election.
very salient in this election, and there really is a religion gap. Now, my question to Jimmy is are we talking about a Catholic vote? At one time, there was such a thing as a Catholic vote,
They
and
voted
it was
Republican.
it was very democratic
Voted
at one time.
Republican.
What is
Well,
it now?
he
Started
says
to-
Democratic, you say Republican.
It started to vote Republican heavily.
yeah, no, I'm saying
originally.
No, the last few years.
No,
it's
but
been
originally it was always a
Democratic.
Democratic vote.
Why
right.
has it moved Republican? Why is it split? What is the
It's all
dynamic?
race. Come on, stop. Put the one word in that runs the country.
Okay, so you're saying that race drove white Catholics out of the Democratic Party?
In an instant. And it started with 1968, the Republican National Convention, which really did it, when Nixon came down with a Southern strategy, he called it. That came from John Mitchell from Jamaica. Hey, look where your people come from.
Queens. Right, all you Queens guys.
Richard Whalen, St. Benedict Joseph. Kevin Phillips was working there. And that was their thing. And it was appealing to the South because of the Democratic Party was stuck with the blacks who don't vote.
So you're saying that the major problem with the Democratic Party has been the erosion of white Catholics leaving the party for Republicans.
To get away from blacks.
Okay, now, are there any differences? When we have to talk about this maybe in the next segment between your Irish Catholic Church and your
They're
Italian
terrible.
Catholic Church.
Let me stick to the Irish. They're terrible on blacks. Got
So-
a bad record.
And you and your book go back all the way to the first Archbishop of New York, Bishop John Hughes,
The
Blackjack
worst. The
Hughes.
worst.
Why?
Because the one the color killed them. They can't handle any different color.
But didn't the church really provide the political organization for the Irish in New York and elsewhere that allowed them to move up the political ladder?
That was for the Irish. Nobody else. They wouldn't know who they're going to help. They're not going to help blacks, which was the calling. If you're following the life of Christ, it was helping. Blacks should have come first to the Democratic Party, but they don't care. What?
Well, I was going to just ask about Roe v. Wade, but I don't know if we have enough time. Do you think that that decision had any impact on Catholic voters in the Democratic Party?
Oh, yes. You can't get most. There's a fable that you think that Catholics are going to accept that choice. They'll accept it very tentatively. I mean, most people don't like abortions.
So you're saying
Don't like
that if
them at
there
all.
is a wedge issue among Catholics, generally as a religious group, it's the issue of abortion.
No, not close.
He's
Race.
saying race.
Race.
Race
Okay.
one. Abortion is something you can argue on the West Side. And now, what's the second?
No, I'm not saying that. But since the Democratic Party supports choice and the
Yeah.
right of a woman
All
to
right,
have
that's the
abortion,
Democratic
how
Party.
divisive, how harmful was that to the Catholic vote in the Democratic Party?
What, the abortion
Yeah.
and the... No, there's something, it's black. The abortion is just a word for blacks.
It's a sideshow. Wait, we got to continue. We're gonna
Black.
interrupt
It
this.
isn't a sideshow here in Manhattan, but it's a sideshow every place else. Abortion, forget about it. Blacks first, jobs second.
All the work that I have to do, I don't have any time to actually find
What is this? Oh, and it's like a foot away from the trash can.
Oh, yeah, hang on a second. You won't believe this. Please tell me somebody didn't just drop that there.
My husband would freak if he saw this.
Yeah, well, it's been there a while.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
Man, I'm like this close to throwing it away myself.
I don't blame you. I mean, who would
Put it to the trash can.
Don't just take a stand. Act. The most powerful way is to simply register and vote.
Welcome back to Eldridge and Company and City Talk with Ronnie Eldridge and Jimmy Breslin. Jimmy, let's go to Iraq. What is Kerry doing and telling us about Iraq?
Nothing. I don't know what anybody is saying. All I know about Iraq is they had one leader who was the most democratic dictator in the Middle East, Saddam Hussein. You could go to any church in Baghdad,
Uh-oh, he's defending
except
Saddam.
except the Jewish place, which they didn't have, and you could get a drink. He had saloons open, and the country held together. The minute he's gone, you've got the boom, bang, bing, everything going on, and it will go on for a long, long, long time. He was the Tito of the Middle East. He could hold that place together.
But Tito didn't kill as many people as he did.
I don't know how many
I
he
don't think
killed.
so.
Well, a lot of
defending Saddam
well, a lot of
Hussein,
people
it sounds like.
rebelled against Saddam. Also,
No, I don't think he's saying that. I
Also-
have to interpret.
I'm saying that we never should have got rid of him. That's all.
You're saying we never should have gone into Iraq.
Is the world safer
No.
now that we got him? I was just wondering. I don't know. I thought, the other thing is, in the meantime, while you're worrying about this, here's this other guy who did kill people and killed people I know, right? A murderer in the
Osama
hills of
bin
Afghanistan. Bin Laden, did they get him? No.
So you're saying, if I may interpret, that Bush made a fundamental made a fundamental mistake going into Iraq rather than staying in Afghanistan.
Absolutely.
Why did he? Why did he go into Iraq?
Because he said his father, that Saddam tried to kill his father.
So it was
Number
daddy's
one.
dad,
Number
you know,
one.
daddy's
too.
war.
Number two, that there's a strong Israeli lobby in that government.
Picking on.
What do you mean? I'm saying it. Everybody knows it. To go in there to fight Saddam rather than anybody else, because that's in Israel. That's a problem in Israel.
Well, they had a theory that they were going to stabilize the Middle East, right? I
With-
don't know what
with
the-
this
by
emerging
destabilize-
democracy.
I don't know.
Go
I
ahead.
mean, that's Pearl and those
Right.
guys.
And then they had this roadmap to peace at
Right.
the same
I never
time.
heard of such tripe in my life, and they said they were going to put a democratic government in Iraq. Where? I mean, what are you talking about? You got Kurds, you got Shiite Muslims, you got Sunni Muslims, you got I don't know what else. You got Turkey jealous on the border, ready to jump in. You've got everything going on. It was a place just made with a stick in the sand almost, Iraq, and it never was a country. Only Saddam made it a country, whether you liked it or not. And now that's what you're left with. All those reasons to go in there, all wrong, all useless, and all in defiance of anything you ever read or heard about. And Winston Churchill said about Iraq, after putting millions of empire money in there, said that he quit, that Iraq was nothing but an ungrateful volcano. And that's when they could use language, incidentally, as opposed to these two-word morons we got today. And we shouldn't be in there. That's all I know. What are you putting an American kid from Woodhaven in there for to get killed? What is this about? Saddam is another person. I mean, Bin Laden's another story. He did something to us. Where is he? Why don't you have him? What are we doing? 3 years later, sitting here worried about another attack. I mean, what are we, just sitting ducks? Then we put armor around ourselves? What is this?
You're not crazy about Kerry and his stand on Iraq.
Nobody says unless I'm nuts, he said something about 40,000 more troops he might put in there. Then he changed a little bit because there's some criticism. But I don't hear him say, I'm going to get out of there. What is he doing staying there for?
What I don't understand is they say we can't leave because we have to stabilize Iraq.
You can't.
There'll be chaos if we leave, but it seems to me there's chaos now, and that we are an unstabilizing force. Somebody, I think, has to say that at some point.
Apparently Kerry's not going to
say that.
It's going to be a religious guy take over the country anyway, an imam.
So you predicted radicalization, Islam, you're going to have Iran too?
Well, we're not fighting just Iraq now. That's the other thing we don't know. We're fighting the world's largest religion, Islam. 2 billion people.
Now, are you saying that this is an actual war against Islam, or we're fighting it as if it were?
Oh, I think they're making it plain. They regard it as a war.
Okay.
Bush now finally is down to they hijacked the great faith, he's claiming, the few. They keep saying they're guerrillas, they're insurgents, they're residents of the city of Baghdad, they're residents of the city of Fallujah. They don't want you there, and they're expressing it with grenades. That's what they are. They're not the citizens of an area. We're calling them bad guys. What are you talking about?
Okay, let's talk about the recent terror alert based on the capture of the Al-Qaeda bigwig in Pakistan.
Yeah.
And
boy.
The city over the last week has been a different place. It's got that immediate post 9/11 feeling.
Yeah.
I noticed it walking down 34th Street. In the immediate aftermath of 9/11, the thing that struck me most was when you heard sirens. It was no longer personal tragedy, but it could have meant the apocalypse. And then for a long time, the sirens didn't mean anything, but I was coming down 34th Street. It was 34th and 7th Avenue, because it was going southbound, and we heard sirens, and everybody turned around because they were looking to see if this was the end of the world, and these were the trucks responding.
A couple of weeks ago on the west side, we heard sirens, and it was one of those exercises that they have around the city. 30 police cars just zooming all over the place.
Well, they did it here at CUNY TV for a couple of hours.
Unbelievable, those sirens and all those cars and the lights going and everything else. It was...
And when it
Okay,
came,
so what's your take on this?
Well, when it came, you had buildings bombed, thousands dead, fires raging. Who did the work? Local 40 of the iron workers, 14 or 15A, I guess, of the operating engineers union. Everybody else was a spectator. I mean, they picked up things or they dug things, but they were the two that did the job.
So they
didn't need a siren to go to work with. Either.
No, I understand that. Let's go back to the alert itself. You've questioned whether this alert is really necessary. You've argued that this is a political ploy.
Yeah. Lie, not a ploy.
Oh, it's a lie.
Yeah,
Excuse me.
absolute
Explain.
lie. They make it up.
Who's they?
Well, Bush, Cheney, Bush, people like that, they lie easy.
But they didn't make it up, did they? It's information that they've had for several years.
What do you mean? You mean they looked on the internet?
No.
Where did they look?
they released information that they've had for several years, right? And they say they've connected it to recent.
Why did they release it
internet
now?
chat.
Why did they release
I
it
don't
now?
know. That's the question, and it's an.
And your question
And you're
implies
saying
what?
they released
It means
it.
I don't believe them. I think they're liars. They're saying, they said in this dopey television, people fill right in. They said some of the most frightening, harrowing things were found in the information, as the intelligence. I love that word, intelligence. They had the incline of the garages, underground garages. They were checking them, measuring.
Right.
Okay. 91, the World Trade Center they put a bomb in the basement. Salome, a Jersey City cab driver, a moron, at a party at 3.
He's
now
not very
they
complimentary.
put the thing in and they set the fuse. Now the truck's in the basement with the fuse started, and they start to drive out. There's a truck stuck in the incline ahead of them. It can't get out. It's hitting the roof, and they're behind it, and they start to go, we're going to go too here. Finally, somehow the truck got out of there, and they followed it. They told that story 1,000 times to authorities about the truck blocking the driveway. You mean to tell me that in those years since that we haven't done surveys of underground garages, how to get out and things like that? Come on. It's an old story they give you. The other thing they said I love, uniforms. They had it down to the uniforms of the people working in the buildings. Uniforms have really been bothering Al-Qaeda from the very start. What did they wear when they hit the World Trade Center? What were they, in uniform? What are you
But people have
talking
always
to me
looked
about?
at uniforms. Bank robbers get uniforms. I mean, everybody gets uniforms. That's an elementary thing that you would expect.
Where? When
people
is
have-
it?
I mean,
I
always.
know in my time they tried to get in the Bronx House of Detention with a uniform on.
I'm just saying that
And,
that's not
they
such startling
couldn't
news that people.
No,
No,
have
but
I
been
that's
mean,
wait,
it's
wait a minute.
old.
So but that's what he says. So you're saying the news is old and it's
No,
simply
that you
being
present it to
used-
me is something very important. Means I'm making a judgment on you right away. You're a stone liar and a danger to the country. Now, let's start. Doesn't anybody know the history of the boy who cried wolf? Everybody, wolf, 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 over the years. That's been a thing, and it's been known, and people have understood how damaging it is if you keep crying wolf. That's what they're doing. They're crying wolf, and they don't think it's damaging in the long run. They'll want to use it for good someday, and it'll ring on.
They are in a difficult position, though, aren't
Why?
they? Because look,
They
at
don't
this
do
whole
anything.
9/11 investigation has been that they didn't pay attention, didn't
That's
they?
right,
When they
that's
had
right.
some warnings, they didn't pay attention.
right.
So now, I mean, wouldn't they then err on being too cautious? I mean, what do you do when you're in a government
You
like
do
that?
when you think you need it for an election. They don't know anything else.
Well, that's
So
what
you're
they're
saying
doing,
this
you
is
think.
you're saying this is only politically motivated, that this old information
I don't trust
is
anything
being
else. I don't trust anything
But does that
else.
get more basic because you just don't trust them?
I don't
I
trust
mean, what
them.
would you do if you're the government and there's a little bit more talk that your intelligence agents have gathered?
Oh, wait a minute. Let's stop using the word intelligence.
Well, I mean,
We've
that's
had a
the
run
term
of
they give.
intelligence, and
Yeah, but just because it was bad intelligence in the
it
past
wasn't
doesn't
any
or
intelligence.
any
Now let's get to
intelligence.
another thing.
Unintelligible. Unintelligent.
Well,
It's
your
lack of
intelligence.
intelligence on two levels, both in terms of spy information and just in terms of
They say they
cognitive.
need human intelligence. They keep telling. How many Americans can speak Arabic languages? How
Not
many
many.
do we have? Nobody. So what are you talking to me
Do
about?
you think there should be?
You heard what?
Do you think there should be a government function of spying or trying to gather
Yeah,
what other countries are doing? What would you call it?
Well, have you ever looked at the help that they brought around and claimed that they were top spies? Drunks, people selling information right in the CIA. A CIA guy, dimwit Cretan, sat there having breakfast, and when they said the plane hit the World Trade Center, he said, "Oh, I thought something like that could happen with the planes," because they knew about it. He
Okay.
didn't want to call Bush at his farm to tell him that.
Okay, but we're
But he
living
knew
in the
ahead.
here and now, and what I'm hearing
Even
you,
now,
what
start all over again. Then you got to hire different kinds of people.
so you've got, but you can't just dismantle it. And
You
then
better, because
create
they're
a
no
new-
good to you now. They're a danger to you. They're incompetent.
Well, let's look at our police commissioner, who
Right.
you have been very.
Yeah, but he's wrong.
Fond of.
He's running in and out like a puppet because he admits the only information he gets is from the CIA and the FBI. Well, then you got nothing in my book. Let's start all over again.
Yeah, but what would
Would you trust a Ray Kelly to be the head of the CIA?
Yeah, ahead of what's there.
Excuse me, I still
With
have
no
this
question.
cold.
Okay, let's talk about Bloomberg and Kelly. Can you imagine them responding in any other way than they've responded
Well, I'd like to say-
given the information that they have?
I want to question the information. I want to go to the what they're talking about to begin with. I attack the premise immediately.
But Jimmy, they're politicians. You're not a politician.
I'm
They're
a citizen of a
I
city could get
understand that.
bombed with these morons.
I
No,
underst-
I want to know what's going on.
I understand that, but they
Yeah.
have a political role. If this
Well, if
guy
that's
goes
their
on network television and everybody sees it and every paper writes about it and says he's raising the alert, and there's a
It's
whole
your
question about
job
this
on
alert
my
now we're
behalf
caught
to-
in. I understand that. But is somebody going to take that responsibility with the people of the city of New York and say, I don't believe these guys, so I'm not doing anything about it?
No,
They
I didn't
can't.
tell you not to do anything. To say I don't believe these guys. They're trying to frighten us. We're going to get to the bottom of what they're
All
saying.
right, but we're still going to take precautions.
We're going to have precautions, and I'm not going to tell you what the precautions are. But I'll
Well, but
take them.
Bloomberg has the Republican convention. I mean, then we go back to Bloomberg.
Bloomberg
has the Republican convention coming to New York, right? You say that he's always fronting for Republicans who don't do anything for him.
He
He's not
doesn't
gotten the
understand.
money for
He
the
don't-
city,
he don't-
nothing else.
I told him
But
I
he's
don't
not
know.
in a political position to do that to the Republican
Well, he
Party
better
because
be.
he isn't willing to do it.
Well, he shouldn't be. I told him that. I said to him, I don't talk
He's not
behind his
listening to
back.
him. Go ahead.
That they're using you. They're
Well, he
using
made
you.
his decision to be used.
Yeah, they
I don't-
come
but-
into his parlor and take money.
But I don't believe that they could not take the precautions they're taking given the national warning that's been given, whether you believe it or not. Don't you agree with that?
I wouldn't take these precautions on their behalf. They're crazy.
Yeah, see, you and I seem to err on the
And he
side
did
of
very well, you know, when
prudence,
he
if
when he
you
ran
will.
for office, he even ran ahead of Mailer on that ticket.
No, I-
when you
Oh, I
ran,
leave that out. That
well,
has
I'm
nothing
trying
do
to
with
say
the-
it. You're not taking a position that is taking into account the responsibilities you have or the position that you hold. If you were the mayor, that you wouldn't follow these precautions.
My responsibility is not to frighten the people who live and work in the city of New York, and they're letting
So
it happen.
what I'm saying is,
But wait a minute. But
what I'm
but
saying
Jimmy,
that is that was very popular because he ran ahead of the ticket.
Oh,
No, I get it.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Jimmy's
He doesn't
saying-
like to talk
no,
about that, but anyway, that I'm cheapening the quality of our
Yeah,
discussion
but
right now.
in a sense,
right?
what Jimmy's saying is that by reacting to this, what he sees as
Right.
suspect information,
Right.
that in fact we are being terrorized,
Right.
and Mike
Oh, we are,
Bloomberg is
absolutely.
an accomplice in our being terrorized.
Yes.
Right.
So they're winning.
Right,
They're
but
winning.
there's
In a
no-
sense, if you will, there's a perverse confluence of interest between the terrorists and the Bush administration.
definitely.
The more frightened we are, the better off the terrorists are because they're
Right.
terrorizing
But then Bush
us.
is operating on the same basis in a way that churches operate in that it's
I'll bet you
fear.
the church.
It's fear that's governing everything.
So it's Machiavelli.
Rather
It's
than
better
hell,
to,
it's fear,
better to be
right.
feared even by your
Right.
own population.
Right. I
Sure.
mean, fear is a big factor, don't you think, in this? He's
So-
not
so
trying.
we've got
Although he
this
tells
very
us that we're
cynic-
safer than we've ever been, but in fact, every
not
day
safe.
he's telling us that we're
not
very
s-
unsafe.
Yeah, we're totally unsafe.
Roosevelt made a great line. They seem to forget that. The only thing you have to fear is fear itself. Fear is a terrible thing. All prize fighters are taught. Of course you're going to be afraid. You're going to be very afraid of this guy. You've got to turn that fear into something positive in you, into energy. They used to teach that very well.
Okay.
We're not turning the fear into anything but despair.
Okay, let's stop right there. You're an advisor to John Kerry.
Yeah.
But I assume that you're right.
Yeah.
What is your message to Kerry, and what is Kerry's message to the American people, if you're right?
I am right.
Well, okay, we're
Say,
giving you
I'm
that
not
you're
He's
right.
infallible.
I'm
That's
not in
right. He's speaking ex
I'm not in the
cathedra.
business of frightening you. I'm not in the business of being weak. I'm not in the business of sitting still for 3 years. And now we're just sitting ducks. I'm going to do something. I'd go right to the UN to say this is the greatest city on earth, has been hit with rumors, bombs and rumors. They're trying to use the word terror on us. Either you people help me now, or you're going to have trouble with the greatest city on earth. Start it and get UN help.
You think that's gonna happen? And it doesn't matter. Does it really matter? You really believe that the UN's going to make a difference in this?
What else would you do?
Okay.
Unless you had Harry Truman. You're lucky you don't have him as president. I say
Okay,
to
go ahead.
myself,
Do a Harry Truman for me.
forget about it. I only remember him walking the street by the Carlisle Hotel and asking him what it was like, you know, that you had to, that you dropped the atom bomb. Had to. That was the answer.
Okay, so
of an
what? So
indecisive man.
what's Kerry's head to?
No, he couldn't do that. You
No, but
can't
what
do
is
that.
Kerry's head to? What does Kerry do? What do you know? What do you have an understanding of what Kerry is about? What his message is?
I don't know. I don't care. I live in the city of New York. I'm supposed to vote for somebody, and they're not telling me anything that gives me comfort.
Well, who are you
He
going to vote
doesn't.
for?
So far, I ain't going to
You're
vote
gonna
for.
vote
I've
for
got to
Kerry.
hear more.
No,
oh,
you
right
are.
away, yeah. I don't settle for mediocrity anymore. We've had it.
So what choice do you have?
The devil you know is better than the
Yeah,
devil you don't
Jimmy,
know. That's
that's
an old saying.
terrible. Jimmy,
Wait, he's voting for Bush?
no, of course not. He's always, I mean, no. He's
Well,
not-
he
just said
He's
it.
going to vote for
Well,
Kerry. I
let
can
Kerry
say it.
say, what is the difference between Kerry and Bush at this time as regards to the situation of the city of New York?
Well, that may be a larger question that Kerry has to answer to the country
I
at
think
large.
so. You
What
better answer
difference?
it to me. I don't care about
Well,
the
what
country
what
anymore.
answer would satisfy Jimmy Breslin?
Has he done some direct contact with these people? I mean, it's like dealing with the IRA. They always wanted to have in Northern Ireland a conference of British people and somebody in the anybody but the terrorists. No terrorists
Oh, wait a
allowed.
minute. Wait a minute. You're suggesting that we talk to the terrorists? They don't
Absolutely.
want to talk.
I don't know that. Nobody's tried it. I mean, talk direct to the terrorists. No question about it. Bin Laden's sister wanted her daughter in Harvard. They all have interests common to us. Go talk to them. If they wouldn't talk to the IRA, and they got, in my time, what it at 68, 78, 88, 98, 30 years of war, of bombings. Talk to the terrorists. Who else are you going to talk to?
Well, apparently
Some sheik that's got an oil well that wasn't elected and would be the first to get his head cut off if these people got at him?
So you really believe in the power of conversation and diplomacy?
No,
and...
buy them up. Do something, but talk to them first.
Okay.
You know, obviously, you're not doing very good at bombing them out, which is another thing to think about. The planes don't work, huh? All our fabled Air Force, all our cannons, all our Air Force, all our men, all they do is look at it and say it's proof that they're the great Satan and they must be slain. We're not winning anything here. We better go and talk to the root of the trouble, which is the terrorists, the worst killers on earth. Talk to them and see what you could do. Buy them, do anything. The British never did it. The British didn't want to talk
I'm
to the
listening to
IRA.
him because
You live with him.
We've
You've
been
got to
married
explain
for
this.
22 years.
Okay, I knew we'd get to the
And
marriage.
one of the things about Jimmy is that he has, in a funny way, a very direct, simplistic approach to things. He goes right to the heart
It's
of everything.
clearly black and white.
And, well, he always says that. It's either black or white.
Right. But that's part of his
number-
upbringing with the nuns.
I
by
was
the
gonna
way.
ask
was
where
gonna
it
tell-
comes from.
It's, us Catholics understand where the black and white comes
Sorry.
from.
But
There's a right
it's
way and
Irish.
a wrong
It's
way.
Irish.
And
Go
it's,
to the core.
He's
Catholic.
but he's so right so many of the times. That's what's so.
and is he right now?
He
How
might
can
be.
I
I've
be
never
wrong?
heard this from him before.
How can I be?
okay, this is
Well,
new?
that it's the same as the Irish?
No,
How can
I've
it be?
heard that, and
Yeah.
and in Israel and with the Palestinians,
Yeah,
it's the
yeah.
same also. That I know, but I've never heard you suggest that we go talk to the terrorists or Bin
Well,
Laden. And I have to think about it. I'm not saying one way or another. I
who
don't
are
know.
you gonna talk
but
to?
let's for the program's sake, we'll discuss that later. But
Why?
let's for the program.
Go ahead.
No, I don't care about a program. What do you want to talk about? This
No,
Go ahead.
I just want to talk. I mean, what you're looking for from Kerry, or what I had understood you were looking for historically, was for him to get out of Iraq,
Yeah.
which he's not doing. The only
Why
person
not
that
vote for
says
NATO?
exactly that's what I was going to
Well,
say. The only
you're giving data votes by not leaving.
so that's a very serious thing, isn't
Yes,
it?
it
In
is.
this election, the NATO vote and everything.
Well, it could be. We don't know if it's going to have the same, determinative impact that it had in 2000.
He ought to get
Is he
out
going
of
to
there.
vote for NATO?
You
I don't
ought to
think
first
so,
of all
no.
get out of there,
No.
save lives, and then talk to these people. And when you talk to them, bring something there to end the thing.
It sounds like, I don't know, my inclination is to talk with them and bring the big stick.
won't do anything but talk to them.
What do you mean by that? Bring the big stick.
That ultimately, I mean, I'm an international relations person in the previous life,
Right.
and I believe in the exercise and the use of power.
Yeah.
So, you know,
But who
you
has
can
the
talk.
power?
Well, I think we have the power, but I think we have the power in ideas as well as in the power in fighter planes.
Sadat from Egypt
Go ahead.
is coming to Jerusalem. It was all of a sudden it was coming, and a United States delegation was there anyway, one of whom was Jim Wright, and he started walking around excited in the hotel, saying, "Well, what can you give him now? What are we going to give this man for coming here?" And he went to Begin, the prime minister, said, "Now, do you have in your mind what we could give this man the minute he gets here? I can't wait. This is an exciting moment." And he said nothing. All right, came away. "This is a madman." He said, "You can't
Well,
do
I mean,
this.
if you can't talk and you can't
Give him something."
Well, give him what?
I
though?
don't- Well, that's what he wanted to know.
I mean, it's interesting. What do you suggest we do? I mean, we haven't overcome them with our power.
Well, or we've misapplied our power, or we've
No,
defined our
it
power
don't work.
incorrectly
It don't
as being
work.
military power and
Oh,
not the
he's
power
not-
of
well, that-
other.
but then you're
other
saying the
men.
same thing.
I'm not disagreeing
Yeah,
with it. I'm
right,
just saying
right. Oh,
it's
all
not
right.
enough.
All right,
How do
right.
you see? Okay, let's. I mean, we're
I
moving
got
down
a source
here.
for all this now.
Go ahead.
There's a what do you call a site, a
Website.
There's a large group of colonels and lieutenant colonels of the United States Army and similar ranks in the other services who have a website. And they got together because they're very worried about their future in this military organization, which to them, as they look up, is crumbling. All you have to do is look at these generals that come on television and see the stupidity that they made it by hanging on to each other. And they get in a place like Iraq and they don't know where they are. They don't know what they're doing. Look at them, one after another coming home. Losers.
Yeah, don't ask him what the website is because he won't have the faintest
Well,
idea.
that's fine. That's fine.
What is
But
it?
they're the ones that said that they're the ones that put together the line that the tanks and artillery and great troops is only proof to them that we're the Satan, evil Satan.
Okay. Well, let me just follow up on this. Have you noticed that who's been missing from the news? I think there's I'm going to invent a new game called Where's Rummy?
Yeah.
And I think
Right.
Rummy's in the corner with duct tape over his mouth. I think one of the points that Kerry must make constantly is, you know, his war vote hurts him with some Democratic voters. I think the thrust of it is the war was one thing, the peace they blew was another, and I think Rumsfeld is the guy, going back to Jimmy's point about the generals, who's going to be the fall guy in this. They're gonna hide him.
But evidently he's the one who really objected to the consolidation of the accepting the report of the 9/11 Commission or adapting the report.
Well,
and
because
that they've come out with a really half-baked answer to that,
Right.
what they recommended,
Right.
and that Rumsfeld is credited with that. But I don't want to take up the time.
Okay.
We're almost over.
Talk about this upcoming election. How do you see the dynamic of this thing playing out over the next couple of
How could Kerry
months?
lose it? But I think he's looking for a way.
But let me ask you something. You were at the convention twice.
Go ahead.
Do you think the delegates to the convention are not typical of the Democrats in the country? And what was interesting was the overwhelming majority of those delegates was opposed to this war in Iraq. Or
Right.
I
had
think
negative
most
views.
people are.
So
Most
then why
people
are
are
they
sensible
not taking
people
a strong
because they don't. He's in the Senate still. He thinks it's right to be a senator. We're gentlemen.
I believe that they are so anti-Bush that they'll take
take
Kerry,
anything.
even though he's not with them on the war. But that perception of the Democrats being anti-war is something that the Bush administration, I think, wants to say,
Right.
because their thing
pushing
is
the other
terrorism and war. So again, Kerry's got the shot, but you don't think he's going to do it?
He's sitting still.
Oh, he thinks he's going to win. You said
Yeah,
that. You start
I'm
with
watching about
500,000
future.
votes that Gore got. You have to add to
Let me
it.
tell you, the only story I know about New York politics is it's true and that is the best in this business. Sitting still, that's a major disease. There's a guy, Eddie Galvin was a captain in New York State Police. he was in charge of Thomas E. Dewey, governor and president, running for president. And they're in the hotel the night of the Truman, the results coming in. And he had a drink. No, he was there, and the Secret Service came in the door, and they said, I remember telling me, they just tapped him, said, you're through, we're taking over. And he went and he got the first drink he said I ever had on duty in my life, because I was now relieved. And he's there, at which point, out of the wire room, in those days they had teletypes, comes Dewey. He remembers he was in stocking feet, and he had a small ribbon of wire that he'd ripped off. He said, I'll be a son of a bitch. He put the drink back, the Secret Service disappeared out the door, and we were back to where we were.
And that's
He's the
because
governor
Dewey
of New
said,
York.
let's
you.
not do anything.
Dewey
because
said,
in the campaign.
they
Hurry,
said you
we're-
got to do something, and he said, I'm a lawyer, and I know this. I know when a case is won, and I won this case, and I'm not going to upset it.
So that's what happened. He lost.
He sat
That's it.
still and lost.
But he's not going to lose.
But
Kerry.
there's a lesson here.
What?
He thinks.
Right.
Okay.
I
Thank
what?
you.
Oh, I know he thinks.
What do you mean? I think he can blow it by sitting still. Of course he can.
Okay. So we'll talk to you again. We'll see if you're right. But
Well,
I'll
okay.
obviously
Hope you're
see you. Thank you.